everybody. Every Christian is both a disciple and a disciple maker. To be a Christian is to follow after and learn from Jesus. That's what it means to be his disciple. At the same time, Jesus commanded his disciples to go and make disciples of all nations. That means we are to help others follow and obey Jesus as well. This is not a command only for pastors and missionaries, but for all Christians, all of us that are here. Thus, to be a Christian is to be a disciple and to make disciples. At my previous church, I would repeatedly tell my elders, you will serve as an elder until you retire, but you will make disciples until the day you die. And that statement should be true for all of us. We need to make disciples because that is our calling, and that is how people grow, and that is how the church grows. Well, now that we know our job description, what kind of disciple maker should we be? What does a disciple maker look like? Paul gives us three pictures, three examples of what a disciple maker looks like. And all three of these pictures come from the family. There are three members of a family: the father, the mother, and the child. Those are the three examples, and we want to look at them in reverse order today. So first, a good disciple maker has the heart of a child. Now, in order to speak about this quality, I first have to say something about the original text. In verse 7, some translations say, we were gentle among you, and others translations say, we were like children among you. And that's because in the early manuscripts, some say gentle and others say child. These two words in the Greek differ by one letter. Without going into the different reasons, I believe the correct translation is child instead of gentle. So what does it mean to be a disciple maker that's like a little child? I think the word that best describes being like a child is sincerity. In the previous verses, Paul tells the Thessalonians what he wasn't like. He says, we were not impure. We did not try to deceive you. We weren't trying to please men but God. We didn't use flattering words. We didn't serve you out of greed. We didn't seek glory from people. We didn't even make demands on you even though we were apostles. In summary, that means they were sincere. When we look at a child, he represents purity and honesty and sincerity. A child speaks the truth. And sometimes that truth comes across as being rude because he can only speak the truth. You might be with your child at the store and he asks, Mommy, why is that man so fat or short or tall or ugly? They're not trying to be mean. They're just being honest and sincere. Paul didn't have a hidden agenda. He didn't have an ulterior motive. He wasn't trying to make himself look good in front of others. And he didn't use his title to get his way. Just think about it for a moment. Paul was an apostle. Without exaggeration, the greatest title or position that can be granted to a person is the title apostle. This title was so rare that literally less than 15 people in all of human history have ever held that title. And they all died by the end of the first century. As apostles, they were hand-selected by Jesus. They were given the authority of Jesus. They replicated the power of Jesus in performing similar miracles that Jesus did. Only apostles had the right to say, "Thus says the Lord," giving direct commands and teachings as they came from the mouth of God. So here, Paul, perhaps the greatest of all the apostles, is saying, we were like little children among you. You see, even though he was an apostle, he only wanted to glorify God. He only wanted to serve the Christians in Thessalonica. And that's how we are to be. We are to be pure and honest and sincere like little children. We don't use our power or position, and we seek to honor God alone, not to look good in front of others. Well, let's look at the next quality. A good disciple maker also has the heart of a mother. Paul writes in verses 7 to 8, just as a nursing mother cares for her children, so we cared for you, Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. Almost all of us have very fond memories of our mother's love and care. I remember the favorite dishes that my mom would make us, the personal sacrifices she made for my brother and me. As a nurse, she would work double shifts at least 2 to 3 times a week so she could put us through college. A mother's love is very special. I'll give you an example. When my daughter was a college student, she was sitting in our kitchen and she was eating some ice cream. So I asked her, "Can you get me some ice cream?" And the first words that came out of her mouth were, "No, get it yourself." So I said, "Come on, get your father some ice cream." And then she had the audacity to say to me, "What have you done for me?" I was in shock. So I said, "Well, I took the time the other day to drive you an hour each way to pick you up and drop you off at school." How short her memory was. Well, reluctantly, she did get me the ice cream. She got out of her chair, went to the fridge, scooped me a scoop of ice cream. But then a second later, my wife comes into the kitchen and she asks her, "Can you pour me a glass of soy milk?" And without hesitation, do you know what she says? "Okay." Now, I couldn't let this go. I had to say to her, "How could you say to your father no, and then a second later say to your mother yes?" And do you know what she said? You won't believe it. "Mom gave birth to me. What did you do?" I think I did something, but I was speechless. I had no answer because in one sense, she was right. Nothing can compare to giving birth. In fact, a mother's love begins even before birth, doesn't it? It begins while the baby is growing inside of her. And a mother's love is shown from the very beginning with pain and suffering in the birthing of that child. Every culture understands a mother's love being different from a father's love. A mother's love is soft and compassionate, sacrificial. Her love gives her whole self, her whole being. Even when she is nursing the baby, she is feeding her child from her own body. A mother's love is definitely different from the love of a father. So Paul says that like a mother, he gave spiritual birth to these new Christians. He's the one who shared the gospel with them and helped them to come to faith in Jesus. But Paul didn't just share a message. He shared his life. He shared his heart. He gave everything for them. He even risked his own life for them. If we want to become a good disciple maker, we have to have the heart of a mother. We have to love, care, nurture, feed, be patient with, tender, sacrifice, and to share all of our lives with others. So a good disciple maker has the heart of a little child, the heart of a mother, and lastly, the heart of a father. Now, I think this might be the hardest of the images to understand. No one has a problem understanding the purity and innocence and sincerity of a child. And when it comes to mothers, all of us know very personally the love and sacrifice of a mother. But when it comes to a father, I think many of us might be a little bit more confused. In what way are we to be like a father? For example, if I were to ask you, what does it mean to be a Christian? How would you answer? We would probably say something like this. Oh, well, it's to bear the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, and so on. It's to become worshipers of God. It's to obey His commandments. It's to love your neighbor. And those are all correct. But what if I asked, what does it mean to be a Christian woman, as opposed to being a Christian man? And conversely, what does it mean to be a Christian man, as opposed to being a Christian woman? How would you answer? Some of us might have a hard time answering that question. And you might say something like this. Well, the man should be the spiritual leader in the home, lead his family like Christ leads the church. And that's a good answer, but what does that mean? You might say, well, one of the things it means is that the man should be the provider and the protector of his family. And in the same way, how would you answer that question for a woman? What does it mean to be a Christian woman? I think we all know there is a difference. If it was all the same, then Paul wouldn't compare himself to a little child, to a mother, and then also to a father. Why does he make those distinctions? He tells us that there is a unique fatherly component to being a disciple maker. There is a unique motherly way to be a disciple maker, and there is even a childlike way to be a disciple maker. So what then are the father-like qualities? Look with me to verses 11 to 12. For you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and glory. So the father exhorts his children, and that means he is a teacher. He gives instructions on how to live. His job is to give moral instruction, how to live a holy life. That's what Paul did. Paul also taught them how to handle difficult situations, like the persecution that was coming. In ancient times, this teaching role almost always was the responsibility of the father. I have a pastor friend, and he instructs the men of his church this way. He says, men should be the first to wake up every morning, to get out of bed. He should wake up, read his Bible, hear from God, so that he can have something meaningful to say when his family wakes up. You see, a father cannot be the spiritual leader in his family if he is not reading his Bible. This is the heart of a disciple maker. The father is also an encourager. I think of it like a father and son going to the park. At the park, the father teaches his son, how to throw the baseball, how to catch the baseball, how to swing a bat. And when his son throws right on target, he says, perfect throw, good job. And when he swings the bat and hits the ball, he cheers him on and says, that was great, you're a natural. And in the same way, older Christians in the church encourage the younger Christians in the church. Younger Christians can make a lot of mistakes. We were young once, and we made a lot of mistakes. A lot of times we lack confidence, younger Christians. So the older men and women need to teach them and challenge them and encourage them. So there you have it. A Christian is a disciple, yes? But a Christian is also a disciple maker. And as a disciple maker, he has to be pure and innocent and sincere like a little child. He has to be loving and sacrificial like a mother. And he has to be a teacher and encourager like a father. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if everyone in our church took seriously their role as a disciple of Christ, but also as a disciple maker? Wouldn't it be amazing if we all grew in these three qualities? Some of us may have one or two of these qualities, but maybe not all three. Ask God to help you to grow in the quality that you lack. And then look around you. There is always someone you can help to grow as a Christian. There's always someone younger than you, someone that wasn't a Christian as long as you. Look to them and see how you can help them grow. As a church, let's become faithful disciples and faithful disciple makers. Let's pray.